So good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to the October IrisBG webinar with Havard from IrisBG and Greg Payton from the world famous Arboretum in Ohio, the Dawes Arboretum.
Why, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So today's topic, there's going to be a quick, or maybe not a quick, but we'll talk a bit about the new release, which is going to ship, or scheduled to ship today. So there's a few little tidbits to discuss there. We also have a few questions from someone that we were going to discuss quickly. And I'm also going to talk a bit about, I went to a workshop with the PlantNetwork in the UK yesterday about tree establishment. And there were some discussions about how people record that in the system, and I'm going to share a bit about how they do it at the Westernbert, the National Arboretum here in England, or in the UK. Is it England? I suppose it's England. So we'll talk a bit about that as well. And I think we will start maybe with the PlantNetwork story. So yesterday I had a very nice time with the PlantNetwork group. And if anybody is thinking about joining, you should. That's the short. It's a great little group. It's a bit like the American Public Garden Association, but here in England. Mm-hmm. And here is a group. We looked at trees and how they and the plant establishment and stuff. This is a 3-year-old tree. I think it's very grown very much. Anyway, this is not so important. The practical part. I'm about to show you a few pictures. You get the feeling of being there. So here we see a nice root ball, etc. So all these things are wild sourced material. So the question is, so when you plant a tree like this, you want to keep an eye on it until you know that it is properly established. So how long it takes in an arboretum vary quite a lot. It depends on the species as well. It could take a couple of years, and sometimes I don't know, Greg, if you have any definition there, but it can take a few years at least.
Right. I mean, if you're in a droughty condition, even a 3-year-old tree could benefit from a supplemental watering. So.
Yeah, exactly.
And structural pruning, something like that. If it's a tree, that you want to maintain a single trunk on, you might want to work at clipping up some lower limbs as it grows.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
For, double trunks, whatnot.
Yeah, so I'm just going to bring up the website for PlantNetwork, so you know that you've seen that, plantnetwork.org. So here you can sign up and join all kinds of conferences and etc. So basically, those trees are on the watch list, you could say, until they're confident that this tree is firmly established and can be looked after in a slightly different manner. So what they do, it's not very advanced, but it's something to think about, and maybe some people might want to adopt the same technique because it seems to work quite well, I think. So what they've done, I've just had the trial version. They have just done the very simple thing. They go into management. They go into definitions, and then they have item status. Where is it? Accession item status. And ignore that one. That's just an experiment. So they just have one called not established or something like that. We can just call it NES or something. And they consider it part of the collection, but then they put it really high up. So we should put it in order 1, for example, like this. So we say sort order, so it comes up quite early. And the nice thing then is that when they get a new tree, they just give it by default not established. And then every spring they go to do an inventory of all the trees that are not established, and then check them to see if they're established or not. And then they also give them a condition. So they then, statistically over time, they can see how well trees, how successful the planting are, the type of species, where they planted, those kind of things. So over some years, they get really nice sort of statistics. And when it's sort of, so then maybe this one could be called something like that. Or something similar, I don't know. So that means that when you accession a new tree, you would, let's see where your Kirk is here, and then just going to scroll down a bit to do Provenance. This is garden, and then you planted it in some garden here, part of the garden, down in the Arboretum Sequoia lawn. And then you just basically do it like this, and then say, okay, we did this in September, one plant. Now it's sort of basically on the watch list. And then first year in February 2018, I'm not sure if our system will. It should. Then you would say you've just inspected. You just keep it and not established, and then you might say something about condition, so fair or whatever. So let's say this was good. And then after you do this over time, you can then sort of get good data on this, how you plant things. If you change your planting technique, for example, you suddenly have data to verify whether that works or not, because you will then see that the conditions are improving over time, and so those kind of things. So, and then you could obviously show a map of all the trees that are not established yet. So it's a lot of those kind of benefits. Any comments from Greg?
Well, I was going to say, we don't necessarily use those, status codes for that. We create a task list in the nursery for each spring and fall season's planting, and then I can maintain those lists as long as I need to. I can change them from open to completed as the trees are planted, and then I could go back and view the map of all the trees planted in the fall of 16 or the spring of 17, as long as I keep those lists and use that same sort of criteria to establish that workflow.
Exactly. Yeah. That will work equally. The only benefit, I suppose, if I could argue for the one or the other. I mean, it's all about how you like things. But here, I'm going back to this. Oh, sorry.
You have to click no or cancel. There you go.
Here you will see how long it took for this tree to be established. Whereas if you have it as a separate list, you would. I mean, anyway, for Westernbird, this part was very much an important part of the sort of the way they operate in terms of keeping an eye on the plant material that comes in and out. And then they also get numbers of how many. I think you would get that anyway, I suppose, how many they planted and how long they. Anyway, so they have about. I think they had about 1,000 to 1,500 trees on. Let's call it a watch list to any given time. And then every year, 200 or 300 were sort of successfully taken out. And then they also get a nice statistic on how many that failed completely. I
just use a slightly different workflow for my status. I start with, I have nursery statuses. Of course, when it's in the nursery, it's inventoried. And I have a nursery inventory type status, and then I have a planted status, which shows it went from the nursery and was planted on the grounds. And then usually after 1 year, at the most, I'll wait for it to sort of do its thing before it's officially mapped. Sometimes if I'm out mapping plants and I find it, I'll just go ahead and map it earlier. But without going out to find it specifically, I typically wait a year. But then I'll update the status to mapped, and then the next time it's found during regular inventories, I'll change the status to inventoried, and that way it sort of goes through its life of being in the nursery, then being planted, being mapped, and then being inventoried.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, that's
that's just more valuable for us to keep that. But I mean, if a garden like Westernbird finds that useful, then more power to them. But that's just how that's how I tend to operate.
Yep.
Okay. Where needed and where this is the
I think you need to. I've had problems with the audio with sort of. Could you repeat the question, please?
Where of the excited.
If this is Rebecca, it's like we're only getting the first sound of every other word. So
Okay.
Maybe you could type it in the message box. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so while Rebecca comes with the question, I think we'll switch to. The meeting took. Thank you. The meeting took place at Westonbirt Arboretum in. It's in the middle of England, almost in Cotswolds. So it's an hour and a half west of London, an hour north of where I live. So that's why it was very convenient to go there. It's a beautiful place, very nice arboretum, very nice. Worth a detour, I'd say. The Arboretum Guide. So next topic is the version 3.6.3, which is shipping today. We'll email out people today or tomorrow morning. We're just finalizing the tests on the mobile. But I have already this running here, so I thought I'd share with you the new things. So the first thing to mention, which I think some people would like, is the when you search for things. If I just search for something here now, rhododendrons, and then you get a list here, and this list of columns you can see here can now be configured. So you can go here, data, and say grid columns. And then you can introduce and take away a few things. So maybe I am not very interested in, not sure what, but let's say I don't want this one. And I don't want that one, and I don't want that one, for example. But I do want, this is the reference from the supplier or something, received reference. I put that up here, so I can also change to the list of how things are presented.
Okay, the order, yeah.
So if I save that now, apply, you will see that the layout is a bit different. And if I close this, you have the same then for, if I go back and then do my rhododendrons for plants, you get the same thing here, that you can change those columns as well. So slightly different, obviously. And this is... Yeah, it's very handy, I think, for a number of you. This is also available on the taxa and the item management screen. So,
and I assume this would just be on a per user basis.
I think actually this will require you to be this is for all users.
Okay.
The benefit there, I think, is we've gone that path more and more now because of some of the large institutions where they have lots of users. It's institutionally kind of these are the columns that are relevant. So you can only do this if you have admin privileges.
Okay.
So
now that's also something that you've granted access to in the screen under management to. Allow certain users, or
no? Well, it will be if you go here. It will be if you have admin access to the accession screen.
Okay.
So if you see here under role types, so let's say the botanist, he is on the accession. He can only update, so he will not be allowed to do it. But if I upgrade his access to admin, he will then be able to change the layout of the.
Okay.
So it's something you have to do as a boss, Greg.
Right. Then if it's also on the taxon screen, you have to have the same rights for the taxon screen as well. Then.
Yeah, correct. And item management, yeah.
Right.
But,
cool.
Yeah.
Nice work.
Thank you. The other, or thank Øyvind for this. Yeah, and then the other thing to note. Based on feedback, people get a bit confused. So if I make changes to something here now, and then I want to go away, you get a warning. And we've changed the logic slightly here because people got confused. This is how most programs operate. They ask you, would you like to save changes? Instead of before it said something else. Can't remember just now what it said. But anyway, the question is, would you like to save changes? Then you say OK, and then you save the changes. So the OK is a positive response to the question, which is more logical, even though it probably has annoyed people a bit. So yeah, I'm just telling you, and I think it works better now. the reason we don't just save them for you is that it's sort of you can then also look at it to make sure you're happy before you click save. It's just yeah.
Right. I just tested it on mine, and what it said is to continue without saving changes.
Yeah, exactly. Which is like a dangerous step. So
it's like
now
a
the
response.
Yeah, exactly. So now OK is more like the safe choice.
Okay.
That's why we've changed it. Yeah. Hopefully nobody will become very angry because of this, but yeah.
You'll just have to read if you're confused to make sure that you're pressing the right button until you get used to it.
Yeah, people don't read. That's the thing. They just click. You know, they that's I'm the same. I think you go here and you just say, okay, I'm gonna go to this one, and then yeah, of course, and then what was that? What did it say?
Yeah.
So now you can now you can at least yeah. Okay,
so you're canceling the changes or staying so you can save the change.
Yeah. I think it makes more sense.
Yep.
Map providers, this is a bit obscure, but I'll mention it. Now you can have as many map providers as you like. There's a lot of tests by map providers I have. But before it was a limit of 20, I think. But now you can have as many as you like, so that's a bit handy for those who need it. Just some other small things here. There's some reports that have been added. And there's a new field for those of you who I'm going to bring the list so you can see what I'm reading from here. So this is not very interesting. The high resolution, really high resolution screens, they didn't display so well. We're talking about some very new laptops that have like 2 by 3,000 pixels and stuff. That's just a very minor change, so it doesn't really apply to many people. Restrictions have been added to several reports, which is handy if you work with a lot of restricted material. There's a new field on the funding report, and then this field, taxon name tagged, has now been included in several other reports. It was only on labels before, but now it's also included in several reports, so you can use the tagging mechanism. I don't know if people are familiar with that, but
I am, and I use it. I use it frequently.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I don't know if you want to show a demo. I think I have I'll do that just for fun. Give me a second. If I go to management definitions, report types. So look at this one, taxa lists, and here we have field names. They just print everything. But I'm now just going to do. It was tax no 0. This is the one, wasn't it? That had that. Taxon name full tagged and taxon name tagged, and then we'll do something like distribution. Delete that. Distribution and family and then one more hardiness code or something. Okay. So if I do this report now, I'll go to reports and then tax this one. And this is another change, a slightly different look on this particular thing.
That's intriguing.
Yeah, it's a bit more noisy, but it's doing the same thing. So begins with Kirkus. View. So these tag things will put brackets around anything that needs to have that should be italicized. There's not any good examples here where you have the author name. Subspecies, as you can see, shouldn't be. So if I now go here and go to the IrisBG plugin, I can run that, and you will see that the whole thing will then be correctly italicized. So it's nice to make, if you want to send this to someone and look really professional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is available. This button is available on Word as well. If you install the Office plugin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Rebecca has a question about Iris Mobile. No, there's no changes to the mobile at this point. We hope to have something ready for you with a new version of the mobile for other platforms early next year in February. That's the plan.
I think what she's alluding to is oftentimes, especially even with my Trimble unit, there are situations where the communication through the USB to the computer can sometimes be difficult because there's like a Microsoft communication type thing, and especially if you're working with Windows 10 and things like that might not work smoothly. So if there was some sort of a wireless or Bluetooth type connection that you could download the data with.
Yeah, that's something we can look into. Good question. Technically that should be possible to deal with if you have a Wi-Fi or something else.
Yeah.
I'll take that as a feedback, and we'll have to look at that because I know that the syncing.
Because I just recently ran a Windows update, and I'm trying to recall the name of it here, but there's I would plug in my mobile unit and it wouldn't connect to it. It wouldn't even recognize that it existed. So I had to Google, and I had to reinstall the, I can't find it now. I forget what it's called, but there's like a Windows Mobile, connection type thing you have to download. And then I had to find a hack online that edited the registry to make it see it again. So,
maybe you could send me those details. I'll put it on the forum because that's something other people might bump into. But maybe we should.
Once I restarted the computer, then I could plug it in. It would go bloop, and found the device, and I could go in and view the files on the device like you would any other type USB device.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
I believe Rebecca also have the issue of running it on an iOS Apple Mac as well, so that creates an extra dimension to the whole thing, I think.
Yeah.
A new report, which you will find under events, which is the exchanges, that has, interestingly enough, not be available as a report. It is now, so if you do a lot of that, you might want to use that. I know some gardens keep an eye on how much they share with others as a way of sort of quantifying how busy they are. So that's, Now, image provider and origin are now part of the upload to Garden Explorer. That can be handy if you have some sort of copyright things and stuff like that you want to be,
Okay.
If you import data, the propagation fields can now be imported. That can be handy. And this one, not this one, author fields, that's fine. That's sort of a part of the search capability. That can be handy if you're looking for a taxa from a given author. This one is, for some people, very handy, and that is that you can actually now remove a custom attribute directly from the custom attribute, regardless of whether you have data there or not. So that means that you can get rid of, if you have some old data that is not really used anymore, it is a pain to get rid of it because you then first need to relocate the data and remove it from the accession or taxa, and then you can take away the attribute. But now you can delete everything directly from here under custom attributes. So now you can just delete it this way, bang, and then it goes away completely. It will probably give you a warning, but I'm not going to do that now. Trust me. The actual registration is focused when opening an event from the form. That's a very, just to help people, it's a very minor thing. And that's sort of it, I think. There's one thing that people have reported with the labels, when you produce labels from the item management, that the count wasn't correctly associated when you used label 2. So that's been fixed. So anybody who's come across that problem will now have to, should be able to work with that. So, okay. So shipping email will go out to all of you today or tomorrow. It depends a bit on things, how well we manage with the finalizing of the integration test with the mobile. So, and then I have a question from someone here. So there's a question about if there is a way to link propagation request tasks directly to propagation events. In other words, if I create a task to propagate 800 meiosis plants, can the propagation item status record somehow be directly linked to the task list? So if you use the event to record propagation requests, so let's say I'm going to go propagation of Marcus. And then do we have that propagation as a request here? No.
Yes.
Oh, we do. Yes, great. That was lucky. And then the question is, if you know exactly what you're going to propagate from, you would probably then refer to that plant you're going to propagate from, wouldn't you, Greg?
Right, yeah. If you have one that you're propagating from, you would, and I would say the item probably, because you might have one item that's correct and one that's not correct.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they might have one that's really healthy and the other one isn't, etc.
Right.
So we have only one here, so the one we planted just a minute ago. We'll probably so if we're going to, let's say we propagate from this one, select and close. So now we have technically linked the plant to that. And then when you start propagating, you would do that. There are two ways to do that. In your world, Greg, you would typically record a new accession, wouldn't you?
Correct. Yeah. We don't recycle the same number for a new propagation. We give it a brand new number for that year for several reasons. One, the accession year would indicate the age of the plant more or less, and especially if it's from seeds or something. I mean, I'm not sure how others do it, but if it's a clonal propagation, you want to make sure that you're able to record that differently, like with a different name or something like that. Say you had some sort of a hybrid, or you collected from the wrong plant, the stems were crossed. I mean, there are mistakes to be had. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if we then propagate from this, and you did follow your approach to create a new accession,
mm-hmm.
we could do this. We could just do a repeat, and then go to parentage
mm-hmm.
to link up to the one we propagate from.
And that's how I do it now. Yeah.
There was this one. So now we have parentage linked, and then here we're going to propagate then in the nursery. So we're going to go down to preparing propagation. And we start today, just like that. And then we go down to propagation. And then we can reference to the plant I can't do that until we save, I think.
Right.
Propagule, so what we did, cuttings, just for, and then 5 propagules, and then a bit of treatment, I don't know. Laugh house, yeah, I don't know, that doesn't match so much. So if I now save that, you have a possibility also then to link to that parent. So interesting, I can now show that I've taken cuttings from this accession through the item reference, like that.
Right.
So now the interesting thing is I need to save before I can get that plant coming up as a possible link. Okay. The question now was, if I was growing 500 or 2, or it doesn't matter. We've started a new accession. You could, if I go back to the original one, you could have had it linked. You could have recorded it propagation directly on that accession as well. And I also want to add that some gardens have propagation as a separate type. There are some benefits to that. That's a different topic, but you might want to consider that as well. If you do a lot of propagation, there are some benefits doing that. You will then always see that the propagation have happened on this particular accession.
So that was my question, Havard, about linking. And I guess what we're concerned about is if we do large seasonal plantings, and so our propagator wants to be able, we'd like to be able to run a report that says we have this task list, we maybe have like 15, 20 different propagations that need to be done for a display. We need 800 of this, 500 of that, 200 of this. Is there any way that we could run a report that would say, look at the propagations that have been done and show what is propagated, and have another column that says what was requested, and then we could, that would be dumped into Excel, and then we could have a column that says, do we need to propagate more? What we have, what we requested minus what we have equals what's left to be propagated, so that they don't have to sort of be going back and forth between the task list and the propagations, individual taxa to see what was propagated. There's no report that we could be able to do that on one screen.
Oh, I think there is. So let's two things. I think if you're doing that kind of quantity, I think introducing a separate type for propagation might be worthwhile thinking about.
We are going to do that, yes.
Yep. The second thing is that you see here, when I started the propagation here, I wrote in the quantity of propagules we started with here, which is not the same as the quantity we have at the current time, which are here and here. So if we now move forward a bit, let's say you go into the nursery and look at these 5, and then 2 have died, then you would typically do something like, let's say it's 1st of November, and then you only have 3 left. I'm just doing it like this for the sake of argument now, and then you can see that the development, but you still have that original quantity. So if you go back to the report section, you have a propagation report, which is under here, which will give you those details. It will. I'm just going to run it so you can see that hopefully this one already include propagule. Does it do the number of propagules somewhere here? No.
It does. It does. It has it in there.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So then.
Yeah, items. That's it right there.
No, but that's the one. That's the count you have. That's not the count you started with.
But I do know that propagule is in there somewhere, though. Number of propagules.
Maybe it's not set up right on this one. Let's have a quick look at the going back to the report section, definitions, report types. I know for some of you I might be moving a bit fast. Hopefully you can see the recording.
Yeah, it's not all fields, so you have it narrowed down. So
prop quantity, that's the one we want. So here we got the item spec count, and if I put this one in here, so you then have, these are the ones we started with, and these are how many you have at this given point. And go back to my report. I'm just going to run it like that so you can see the most important part. So here we didn't start with it. So this doesn't have any data apart from the one I just worked on now, I think. Hopefully that will show up somewhere down here. Yeah, here we have a few. Yeah, you see, here's the one we started with, the Quercus. So at the moment we have 5. We start with 5. We have 3, and then the one thing you need to do is to add, if you want to calculate the propagation success rate, you could write a formula here to compare the two.
Right, but there's what we need. You've got sown and then successful plants from the sowing. But what we want to do is go, we needed 800, we sowed 600, but we had poor germ. We only got 200. So, you know, we had needed 800, sowed 1600, got 200, 200 from 800. We need to see that we need 600 more plants still. Somehow, so the information that goes into the propagation request is, this is how many plants I want to end up with. And we want to be able to measure how have we achieved our propagation goal of ending up with this many plants. So somehow we want to be able to link from the propagation request, which is someone saying, I need this many plants at the end of the day, and we need to be able to link that with our propagation events to go, have we met this, what was our goal to start off with as far as ultimate plants out the front door?
Okay,
you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely, yeah, no, that makes, so what I'm thinking now, I'm thinking aloud, which is a bit crazy, maybe, can give strange results, but this was my request where would you then create a request and know what you're going to propagate from already, or would that just be?
Yes,
yeah,
we would.
Okay, cool, because you could do this is the source, and then you could go one step further and add, you know, I'm not sure if this is I know that I know the accession number of the other one here. So this is the one that we actually propagating from. I'm just not trying to spell here, just so. Now you have the source, and now you have the one that's actually being propagated. So then, of course, you could start several batches. This one didn't go well, so you start another one. You just add it to the list, and then here you will say 800 crocus before Christmas. I'm just joking here, but you get my point. And then you could use this event as a filter when you run the report. So you would then do propagation report, where you go down here under event and say propagation of quercus. And now you run the report. The other thing you want to do is you want to see you obviously want to see only the current status and not the history. This shows you everything. So tell you what, I wonder if we just had to look a bit more on how to do it. But I think this is sort of we're on the right track. I think halfway there.
Okay. Using the event as a filter.
Yeah.
That's the task. So then they get everything related to that particular propagation request. Yeah. I
think the only thing missing from that scenario is the total amount needed that's before Christmas, so he can use that as a to subtract from to see the current.
You hit the nail on the head. You
hit
the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Clink.
Bang. Yeah, that's a challenge here in terms of. Because, as you say, the scenario is that you wanted 800, and the guys at the nursery, they said, okay, we'll make 400 first batch, and and then you sort of split it up too much, or that will happen then. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to have problems getting that number of the desired quantity connected with the propagation.
Yeah, because it might differ from what they actually started with. So what you want at the end, I suppose, that you wanted 800. Well, what this feeds into me or to us is that we have a similar story with label requests. That is a bit sort of maybe we should look at the way the tasks are designed so that they are also maybe there will be a fifth or sixth type here called request, so that you can use that number that you're looking for here and link it into the reporting somehow.
If you could just select some of those fields to have them dumped in event fields to be dumped into the reports, then that would be in the report, and then one could do subsequent manipulations at the Excel level to connect those things.
Well, in the events report there, number 4, you can get those fields where the ultimate number were needed out, and then there might be even a way to use the task wizard to merge together the propagation report or a propagation task or something to pull those together. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud as well. I could be totally wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think well, the most important part, I think, Sean, is that I understand what you're looking for.
Okay.
That's the essential first step, and I think we're almost there.
Well, I don't want to belabor the point. I'm sure other people have questions too, so I'll start thinking about this.
Yeah. There was a related question here with adding item types. So can you add as many as you like? Yes. So there's a distinction for when you purchase Iris, if you just buy the standard product with anything, then you're sort of limited to one item type. If you get the it's listed on the price list as preserved material, but it actually is a capability to record any type of plant material. So the way to figure this out, if you have that or not, is when you go into item types here, you will see that you can actually click on this green plus button. If you can't, then that means that you probably just have support for one sort of item type. And the way to go about it, if I'm going to add the propagation here now, I would just first start here, propagation, and we say that's living, and then you need to go in here to add a few statuses. So I'm just going to do propagation like this. Planned. Just going to cheat and see what we had here. Preparing propagation. So these things here, procedure means that it is not counted as part of the living collection at that point. And then we have successful, or I'm just going to, well, you get the point, I think. We'll stop here. But we would then add and using this field context, that means that the propagation fields become visible. Yeah, I'm going to stop here just to shorten it a bit. So the last thing you need to do after you've done that is to go into management collections and make sure you're allowed to record this type of material in the collection. So that I'm showing you this. It's a bit geeky, but if you want to go ahead with this, then you can. Now you know how. So now we have propagation in here, and you also may need to tweak the locations. Let's see. Did I not save that? Oops.
You were just a bit by your own change.
No, yeah, I was a bit quick here. So there we go. If I go to locations here, some areas are restricted to one type of material. So you might then want to go down at the nursery and make sure you can record propagation there at least. So right. Here at the nursery, we have only planting. So what I can do here is I take away it so that you can record anything in nurseries. Make it easy for myself. So that's Control Delete to remove anything in a Dropbox. Now I should be ready. I need to log in and out to get this thing to sort of pop up on the screen. Okay, that was a quick introduction on how to add a new type. So the other question from that is there a way to combine accessions? So if you import a lot of historical accessions and may wish to combine them under a single accession number in the future. I think short answer is no, it's not like sort of some magical button to click and say I would like to merge two accessions. Normally, one accession is a single accession because it's sort of same genetic material. Sometimes people put things together. Obviously, they have to be the same species. But sometimes if they got it from the same nursery at the same day or same week or something, they might want to accession it at one accession. So there's not really that often people start to think, oh, we need to merge this accession into one. unless there's some good reason because the data was wrong in the first place.
Well, I can give you an example that's practical for us. When we had accessions that were planted but unrecorded many decades ago, long before I came, and it would often be recorded as an unknown accession. So and it was called a D for Dawes and then U. A DU accession meant unknown, and then they were just numbered sequentially. So it meant nothing. There's really no accession data because we have no idea where it's from. But then each plant of that unknown accession, like say we had 5 spruce trees growing together, each one of those would have its own accession with one plant. Even though they probably were planted all at the same time from the same source, we just don't know where. So I oftentimes want to put all 5 of those together under one number and have 5 items.
Yeah.
So then I have to go in manually and look at all the history and the dates of each one and add them individually to the one accession that I'm using, and then finally delete the other accessions.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a manual labor there. It sounds
exactly.
like.
Yeah, so that's a practical use for that, but it's not common like you say. But
yeah, the volume isn't, or normally isn't that huge, but I can see. So one thing you could do, I think, if there's a bit of volume, would be to export the data and then just import it back in as items to the existing accessions they should belong to.
I've thought of that too, but then you get into item history. I want to import the history as well. So
yeah, that is very annoying. Then you need to go and import history so that you take the oldest first and then keep on adding it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know it sounds like so.
It's almost as much work as just manually typing it in.
Sounds like it. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, there's no support for that at the moment, but I understand that might be really handy in some cases. Yeah.
Right. I've never asked for it because I know that it's probably only 2 out of several hundred users might ever need that. So.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a question from Rebecca that you emailed me about that, Rebecca, and I think this is sort of not so easy to discuss here because I need to see how your locations look. So I think we'll take this after by email or by just talking together. Yeah. So it's just a question. I mentioned one thing that comes up sometimes, that when you want to, if you look at the trial version here on the locations, the structure here is such that you have, for example, Arboretum, and then you have a blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. So there's like a hierarchy here. And when do I want to search for everything that is in all these subsections? Can I do that? And the answer is yes, you should be able to do that. If you go to Accession Screen, for example, and you clear and you do advanced search, you will see that under planting here,
it begins with,
you have location code starts with, and then if I now select ARB, I would get everything, all ARB A1, A2, etc. The only thing that doesn't work is if you want to then start to do, you want all in ARB and all in the rock garden. Then just to make sure you understand that, you have to then start selecting all of them, which can be a bit tiresome if you have many beds. So the way to work around that might be to create a task instead and build that task list of all the plants in those areas and use that as a filter combined with everything else you want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm on a conference call, Beata.
So, yeah, I will... okay. So that's the item locations. Just how it should work anyway. It begins with is the key here, starts with. Yeah. Any other questions from the audience or any other comments from anywhere? Greg?
Yes.
Do you have anything to mention or report back? We're sort of nicely on schedule now. We started 5 minutes past, and we're running up to 50 minutes in 2 seconds. So
I know oftentimes in new versions you incorporate new export fields in reports. Is there any way just to, by default, have all fields be able to export it, to be exported?
Yeah. That's a very good question. So when you in the report types here, if you saw in the taxa report that I changed, I started to add fields. But if you just have nothing, then everything in the report will be produced.
But I'm saying, in those reports, not every field that exists in the screen is in there. Oftentimes.
Can you elaborate a bit more? I'm not sure I understand that.
I would have to find an example, but there might be little esoteric fields, and I don't know if you changed that recently or not, but I would have to look. But there might be like origin. I think origin references in there, but I'm just saying there might be some particular fields in the accession screen or the taxon screen that might not be available for export in the reports.
Yeah, that's true. There are some fields that are not available.
Right.
And you would like everything to be available. Is that what you're trying?
I'm just saying that would give options for everybody to export whatever they wanted at any time without having to say, hey, add this to your next, to your export fields in the next version.
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. I think the reason at the moment is that there are quite a few esoteric fields that we don't think anybody wants to put out. But I suppose on the accession and the plants items, the idea originally was to keep a list functional by not having all kinds of things that nobody wanted. But it turns out that people want quite a lot of it.
Yeah, but each version you keep adding more and more. So.
Yeah, exactly. We're sort of we're getting mature in that we seem to be able to offer most things people need. But
well,
you might.
I can joke and say you should learn that us Americans at least want everything all the time.
Yeah. Would you like another ice cream? That's a question not to ask.
And similarly, there are fields in the accession and taxon screen that are not searchable. Like I'd like to, under collection description, for example, under accessions, if I misspelled a word or something and I wanted to search for all the occurrences of that misspelling, I have to export it into Excel and do a find in Excel to find those situations. I can't just do a search right in Iris.
Yeah.
At least I found a workaround, but
Yeah. No, I understand. Yeah. Yeah. We should index absolutely everything. We should get Google to help us. And
yeah, exactly. Just Google it. But habitat, like you have, highlighted right there. There's no symbol left to the word habitat that shows that it's searchable.
Yeah. I just wanted to check one thing which Sean has mentioned here, and that is whether you can do propagation fields in the regular item report, because that I think you can, but I'm just going to double check that. I think you should be able to. So it's just a normal item report, because that's probably the one we, yes, propist code, provenance. No. There might be times when you just want to run the latest, propagation conclusion.
But then if all fields were available, it would be there.
I know. Okay. Anyway. Yeah. Okay. I hear what you're saying, and you're getting praise from others. So people are applauding with their message board here. That's good.
Noted. Yes.
I think I'll hang up now. Okay. Well, that's a fair comment. Okay. I think we have. I don't think I have anything else to talk about at the moment, so we can.
So our allotted time has expired.
Sort of, yeah. So we'll thank everybody for joining, and please join us again next month on the. I'm just going to check when it is.
Yeah, just put on your calendar just to a reminder for the first
2nd
Thursday
of November.
Of each month. Yeah.
2nd of November. Yeah.
I just have an automatic item that pops up at this time the first Thursday of each month.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea. Okay, great. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next month.
Okay, thanks a lot, people.